So in an introduction to Tableau, the big question is, what is in this universe? You may have heard terms like prep, server, cloud, public, desktop. You have this general concept that it allows you access to data, but you might not know how that fits in and where it fits in. It can be confusing, but these are all just different products that really do three primary things. Well, let's call it four. I can put these items down and give you some text about what they are, but this doesn't really explain what it is. Feel free to come back and review this. Public is free. It stores workbooks publicly and online. Great for learning, but not good for HIPAA compliant data. Tableau Desktop is a paid version with a free trial, recommended for healthcare analytics in a professional setting because it does help data remain private. More robust features are enabled here for connecting to various data sources, as well as how it is shared. For example, how it would be shared on Tableau Server. Tableau Server and Tableau Cloud are enterprise deployment options that allow secure sharing of dashboards within an organization, typically used for collaborative, multi-user environments that require some role-based access and other row-level security. Tableau Prep is a separate but integrated tool designed for data cleaning and transformation before bringing it into Tableau Desktop or Server. So it helps to merge, shape, clean large, messy data sets, very commonly used in healthcare and healthcare analytics. So this is a lot to digest and really hard to understand from text alone. So I'm going to help outline it visually a little bit more. Basically, Tableau can operate in a local environment like your local computer, the item that you're working on, or it can operate in the online environment. It can also give you access to data that is local or online. In that local environment, you might need to access an Excel file or a database that your institution has, or in the online environment, you might be operating in Google BigQuery, you might be accessing data from Amazon Web Services. Tableau enables you to connect to and have access to data. Another opportunity that Tableau does have, it is separate. It's not always something that you use to access data, but it is there to prepare data, and that is Tableau Prep. Preparing data is the idea of cleaning and massaging the data to get it ready for what you need. After it's ready, you want to build, right? And so this looks messy. This looks like a lot of options. It really is the same basic utility. It looks and feels the same. It's just available in a lot of different environments. So in that local setting, it's available to download an application called Tableau Desktop, where you've got the most utility, easiest to operate in, and this is where most people are used to working in Tableau if they have it through their institution. If you're a new learner or you're on a budget, Public, it does have a version of Tableau Desktop that you can download for free so that you can work in a very similar way, just with a little bit of a restriction on your capabilities. In the online environment, you do get the ability to build both in server and cloud, and also there is a public online version which has the same basic builder for you to create visuals. Here's just a quick image to pop it up so you see what it might look like to be working in that environment. You would see something very similar, this same basic Tableau in the server environment, the online environment, and also on your local desktop. So there's one last step. You've built something, it's amazing, but now you want to share it. So that's the last thing Tableau is good for in displaying information, being able to share a dashboard so that others can come to it and get information from it. That can be established, it can be shared through the desktop. In that local environment, it also might be shared on a local company server. And in the online environment, it can be shared out to Tableau Cloud in your institution or even to Public. There is an opportunity to share your work on Tableau Public, even in the free version. So this is this whole environment. We are going to go through and look at a number of these things and get you from absolute beginner to having created a visual in Tableau Public where you have free access, and show you some of these other things just so you get eyes on them and get a good introduction into it. So let's get into the work.
Take a look at what it is like to get Tableau Public on your system, downloaded, and to sign up. So I'm here at public.tableau.com/app/discover. I'll put that in the description of the video. And you can see very clearly sign up for Tableau Public is your primary option. So we're going to go ahead and get this done. I'm going to put in my name. We'll go to create my account. Thanks for registering. You'll receive an email containing a link to confirm this registration. So that's the next step. Okay, you're going to want to go ahead and follow that email's instructions to get logged in and verify your account. And then it's going to bring you to a page where it's asking you a little bit more before you start exploring. So you can set your role as a student, a teacher, researcher, or a professional user, where you live, what state you're in, and I'll choose to download the application. I'm actually having trouble getting this to allow to do it. So I'm going to come up to my blockups and allow pop-ups from this site. Try this button again and see if we can kickstart that download. Here we can see that the download is started. And so once this is completed, we will click on it to execute the ext file. All right, it looks like it's completed. So I'm going to choose this download section and grab this file. It's now going to start downloading on my system. And we've got a screen here that's going to walk us through the rest of the installation. You need to agree to accept the terms of the license agreement. You can choose whether or not to send them your product usage information and click install. Once the process was finished, it's going to go ahead and open up a window here on your desktop. And you now have Tableau Public here and working. You can access it very likely as a shortcut on your desktop. And if not, if you come down here to the Windows option and go to your recently downloaded applications and look for Tableau Public, you're going to find that application on your system and you can open it. And when you do so, you will be greeted by this page, this open page that's basically saying, let's get connected to data. There's some resources on the right that gives you some videos to watch, some other data sets that you can use as something to connect to. So we're going to be connecting to a type of file called a CSV, or comma separated values. This is nothing but a text file where each column of information has a comma between the piece of information that's in that column and the piece of information that's in the next column. This is a common data format that allows you to store a whole lot of data in a structured way that can be opened in multiple types of applications. One of those applications is Excel, and often on your system you'll actually see those files looking just like an Excel file. That's the case for me here. I'm going to show you how I'm going to connect to this data by going to, in the connect area, text file. Then I will navigate to the folder where I need to be, these data sets here. And so you see generic.csv for me looks just like an Excel file because Excel is one of the applications that can open CSV files, but they are very different. CSV files can really only be one tab in Excel if you're thinking of it that way, and they do have the ability to have more data than the Excel row limit. It's a common data type to be used to transport larger amounts of data. And so this data set comes from Kaggle, and I will make it available to you. You can check the comments of this video to figure out how to get it. This generic.csv is what we're going to connect to and look at for an introduction to Tableau Public and some of the basics of how Tableau works. And so we'll get connected here. The system takes a little bit to load it for the first time, and it brings you here to the Data Sources tab. We'll navigate away from this tab eventually, but you can always come back to it. And it represents what you are connected to. It tells you what is here, what tables are available. So we've got the generic.csv table shown up above here, and they give you a preview of what this data looks like with a listing of what are all the different field names and where they come from. So you do have an opportunity, if you'd like, to do things like change the data type. If we don't like how something is represented, either as a string or a date, we can change it and change its formatting here. We can also do that in other places within the workbook. This is markedly different than Excel because this is not a place to edit this data or change this data. This is simply connecting out to the generic.csv file and loading it for you to use. So that file itself will not change at all. You're just pointing to that file and asking Tableau to create something with the information in that file. So that's what we're going to move on to do here. You see that I've moved to the first tab that's available to me, which is Sheet 1. This is what they refer to as a sheet, very similar to the concept of a worksheet in Excel. If you look at the first button to the right of that worksheet, that is how you get a new worksheet, just by clicking there. The next one is a new dashboard. You can see that by hovering over it. And a dashboard is a place where you can put multiple sheets. So the primary way that we're building in Tableau is that we'll build out a specific visualization in a sheet, and a couple of them, and then bring them together on a dashboard to share more than one concept, or to share different aspects or angles of one concept or problem that we are informing on. There's a third type of item you can create in Tableau here, which is a story. Now, a story is a place where you can pull multiple sheets and multiple dashboards. It allows you to take those sheets or dashboards and filter them or highlight them, do things in order to point out something you want to share about the data, and then add a caption in order to tell a story. So you can continue out and build different panels to this story, sharing different views and slices of the data that you want to give to that end user without having them do the exploration on their own, or just by telling them simply. We're not going to work in stories right now or dashboards. We're just going to talk about the sort of basic starting point in Tableau, which is a worksheet. And so in the worksheet, you have access to the data that is in this data sources area where you have loaded generic.csv. And so what you're going to see in the sheet on the left-hand side is a list of the dimensions that are available in that table. What we have is a separation between the top area that is blue, if you can see that color, and the bottom, which is green. The top area is what is referred to in Tableau as a dimension. These are items that are typically date, text, and sometimes integer values that are discrete variables that describe the data. And so they are things that we typically aren't quantifying, but using to describe what is in the data. So admission type would be an example of that. I'll double click admission type and you'll see that it jumps onto my canvas here as a row item. And now you see the three variables, three pieces of information that are in admission type. Admission types in this data set are either elective, emergency, or urgent. Down below in the green section is all things that we would talk about in Tableau as a measure. And so a measure is somewhat self-explanatory in its name. These are all things that we would want to measure. These are numeric, continuous variables that we would use in order to count or take a sum, an average, something to that effect. And so you see age and billing amount. Now this is interesting because age is not usually something that we are trying to add up. We don't usually take the total of age, but we might do something like an average of the age. However, most of the time, age is typically used to describe our population. So it fits a little bit closer to that of a dimension than it does to a measure. And so there's a way to go ahead and tell Tableau that's how you're thinking about this particular column in your data, and that's by choosing the caret on the right hand side of that pill and coming down to convert to dimension. So now age is up here in that top section and will be used in a slightly different way. You'll see some examples of that as we go forward. But I do want you to see the way that a measure is brought in and used in Tableau here. And so billing amount is the primary measure that we have. I'm going to double click that and you'll see the automatic action of Tableau is to pull that in to the marks card and do a sum of that billed amount. So it's already deciding we need to do some mathematical formula or function on this continuous numeric value. People will want to look at the sum of this or the average. The options for what you can do as a default in this pill is in the options available by clicking on the caret there, and you'll see an item that says measure. Right now it's a sum, but I can change that to average or median or count distinct, minimum, maximum, percentiles. standard deviations, variance, and 2 different types of variance. So I'll swap that over to average. So now you've got the average billed amount by admission type in our data set. So now you've already bumped into 2 of the 3 primary areas that you need to understand in this working area for a worksheet. And so that is the marks card, because that is where you'll place items that you want to have displayed as the sort of like text that is delineated. You can bring things here and have them apply to the size of some element in a graphic, or you can bring them here and have them apply to a color in the graphic. And so we'll see examples of that in later work, but right now understand that the marks card is the place where we bring elements in order to do something specific with them on our sheet, especially quantify them. The other area that we've bumped into is the rows and columns section up at the top here. Admission type is currently in the rows, and so then you see that dimension split over the rows of the visual. If I were to pull it to the columns area, it would do something that you might expect, which is to turn that into columns before it shares the average billed amount. So we're going to keep that in the rows. I think it's easier to read. And we'll talk about the last. I say there's 3 main areas to get to know here on this working sheet, and that final is the filter. So what you're looking at on the screen right now is the average billed amount by admission type for the whole data set. But you may desire to see some slice of it that is a little more attuned to a recent period. So you may pull something like the date of admission here to the filters, and it will give you a number of options for how to use this as a filter. And I'm going to choose years as the way that I will filter. It shows me the years that I have in this date field, and I'm going to pick just the most recent, 2023. And you see that our figures have updated. So now you are showing the average billed amount by admission type for the year 2023. So there we are. That is the basic operation of this working area. And by default, Tableau is saying, great, you want these elements displayed? I'll put them into a chart. You might be wondering, how do I make an actual visualization, not just a chart? We already had the data sort of in a chart type format, table type format. And so that is all available to us in the upper right hand corner through this item which says show me. And in show me, you're going to see a number of different graphics that can be created. Some of them are clearly available to us because they are in a bright color, and when we hover over them, we outline them. They outline. But when you transition to some of these that are grayed out, you don't get that same action. That's because currently what you have out on the working Tableau is not going to support creating one of these visuals. If you hover over it, it will tell you a little bit about what is needed in order to do this visual. And so when I'm hovering over this area chart here, it says that you'll need one date, which we do have in as a filter, but not out as a in the rows or columns or anywhere else. You'll need 0 or more dimensions and 1 or more measure. So the primary limiter there is we don't have date out as a column or a row, but we can go ahead and build something like a column chart. So when I chose column chart, it did not change any of the data that is on the Tableau here, but it did change what it created for a display from that. So now it is still taking the average billed amount by admission type in the year 2023, but it's put it into a bar graph. So you've just created your first visualization in Tableau. Congratulations, that's the first step of many that's going to get you to a skill set that enables you to communicate and share findings from data to help drive decisions. Let's end by showing you how to save this file. So right now you should know that there is a file, save as option. The most common way to save a Tableau file is just as a Tableau workbook, to put it somewhere where you'll remember where you put it so that you can come back and open it to continue to iterate on it at a later time. So the next time you open Tableau Public, you'll see this file as an option. You could also click it, double click it from the desktop or the place that you saved it, When you open that file again in Tableau, you're going to have the visualizations you had created before saved exactly how you had them. Now I wanted you to see what that process would look like if it had been saved to Tableau Public. So I'm going to save this to Tableau Public as the same name, generic CSV exploration, and I'm going to first have to sign in. And that means I'm going to turn this off. I'll get signed into the Tableau Public server, and now it's going to let me go ahead and choose a couple of things. I'm going to let it know that I'm in the United States. I agree to the terms and policies, and I complete the sign-in. After I come to this area where I choose extract, I hit save again, and now it's being published to Tableau. It's going to take me to the site where I published it. It's going to be named Generic CSV Exploration by Jesse Andrus. I'll show the example when I'm signed out so that you can see the experience of coming back to that site where you'll need to log in. You can see that this is the site for me, but I can choose sign in, use my email, password, and get back to editing my Tableau Public site. Something interesting that is available here is to actually create visualizations from this web interface. So this is another opportunity you have to do things on the move from another machine, or just not in that desktop version. It's going to be primarily the same experience. So let's walk through it and do that. Let's go to Create, Web Authoring. So now you're met with a view that's going to ask first, how would you like to connect to data? So I'm going to choose Upload from my computer, go back to that file where I've got this stored. I'm going to go back to the file location where I have generic.csv stored. It's going to load it here for the first time, and it will give me the same area to work in as we saw in the desktop environment. So we've got the data source in which we can see a preview of what this data is. We can come over to our worksheet and start visualizing with this data. The first time that it grabs the data, it may take a minute to import and get that data up onto the server, but once it is done, you have a working environment where you can do exactly what we did before. Like, let's see the average build amount by changing that measure to average. Let's go and put the admission type here in the rows. We will pull that average build amount down to the marks card and put it where it was before, which was as a label. We're going to head over to Show Me and choose a bar chart. So there you've finished the exact same process, but in the online version, so that you can see that as an option. So the differences will be that this is hosted online on another website. Some of the compute will not be happening on your local environment, which can be a benefit. And you have a quicker access to publishing this straight to your Tableau profile. So I'm going to exit out of here, and I don't need to save it. And I want to point you around this profile a little bit. Now, I have just that one dashboard we had built before, and it is hidden right now. I've done that because this is a public profile where I'm sharing my work, and I can actually direct and share with others, here is what I am capable of in Tableau. So that's the big advantage of Tableau Public as a resource to learn Tableau and to be able to showcase what you are capable of. You can create full interactive dashboards with Tableau Public free and publish them out as a resource that you can share with potential employers about what you are capable of. So that's what makes it such an amazing and interesting tool. I do want you to at least see Tableau Prep to understand what it does in the Tableau world. However, it's not going to be a concentration of this introductory course. Also, as a new person in analytics, you're unlikely to hit this tool for a little bit of time. So let's start by connecting to data, and you're going to see something very similar to what we've operated in before, where it asks what kind of a file are you going to connect to. We're going to use that same generic.csv, and so I choose text file. I'm going to get to the folder where that is located. The primary action that you're taking with the data step in Tableau Prep is to clean it up, maybe aggregate it. You could pivot to change the shape of it, or you might join it to some other data set. I'm going to showcase what this would look like to clean the data. When I do that step, it gives me a preview of each of the columns and the distribution of data in those columns. This is a great opportunity to just profile the data and see if there's anything glaringly wrong with this information. Now, this happens to be a very clean data set, so nothing emerges immediately. In a real-world data set, it would be very common for you to be able to identify a particular column that might have a whole lot of missing information, like nulls, or you might find a date range that really seems like it could be inaccurate or missing some of what you need. So I'm going to use this discharge date range as an opportunity to highlight an example of a cleaning step that I might take. Something I might do in the cleaning process is to filter out these dates to only be within a particular range that I care about. And so I'm going to set that range to be from 1/1 of 2023 until 1/1 of 2024. I'm going to click Done just to show a few other examples of actions you may take. You may choose that you no longer need the room number field and the admission type. And so you could select each of those columns and then remove those fields. You'll see on the left-hand side, it is building a chain of actions that it will take on this data each time that you run this flow. So I'm going to show a final step, which would be output, in which I'm going to choose a location for this to go and a format for it to go in. So I want it to go as a file. I'm going to name it generic 2023 to 2024. It's going to go to my general repository, and I'm going to choose that output type to be a CSV, and I will run that flow. Now it's going to take a minute to process, and it's going to let me know that it is done. When I head over to that folder, I can find generic 2023 and 2024 as a new file that is the generic data with those process steps taken to clean it up. It will only be discharge dates in 2023 and 2024, and it will have a couple of columns that missing that weren't there any longer. So this is the type of operation that you can do with Tableau Prep, and that's the position it holds in the Tableau world, is to do profiling and cleaning of data.